confusion.
Yes, well, it is a astonishing morning here in the Midwest, and the temperatures plunged, and so there is more than frost on the pumpkin. There are icicles on some pumpkins in the region, and if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, then you're ready for Halloween.
Yeah, icicles. Oh man.
Yep,
No.
it's getting real here in the Chicago region. We are often given to all of these little quirks of nature, but whenever they arrive, you always act like, oh my God, who would have imagined that this could actually happen?
Well, obviously we can. Jeez, right? It's our imagination, isn't it?
Yes, it's all that bundle of worms inside that can inside your head that you're unwilling to go look at. But that's the journey,
Oh,
sneaking up on the worms.
yeah, we got to maintain this world somehow. We have to avoid it. Let's keep it over there hidden behind a labyrinth of goodness and craziness.
Yes, and so how are things there in Utah?
Pretty good. Pretty good. It is definitely getting cooled down. We painted some pumpkins with the kids the other day, and I got carried away doing a Lightning McQueen for my son, and it's like a perfect painting. It's amazing. Took a couple hours.
Yeah, I find it interesting that people are painting pumpkins now because when I grew up, that wasn't even a consideration. It was all about carving your pumpkin. And then
Yeah.
as we got older, I did a little research and discovered that the actual tradition, which came from British Isles, mostly Ireland, was turnips. They would carve a turnip into a hollow shell and use that to carry a light. It was like a lantern, and that was where our jack-o'-lanterns actually originated. Was with the Irish and their turnips, and not the.
Wow, I had no idea. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
And I am particularly fond of turnips, so carving out the inside would mean that you would have fresh turnip innards to add to your pot of stew.
Yeah, me. Yeah, we didn't carve pumpkins last year because the year before it got a little crazy and kind of made a mess of the whole kitchen, and so we decided, hey, we can paint them so much easier. And my wife is like puking over taking out the inners of the pumpkin. Like it's disgusting, and so it's funny that we did just stick to painting. We were talking about maybe carving a little bit, but it's fun. It's all about family to me. So
Yeah, that's what makes it all worthwhile, is to get the kids involved.
it goes by so quickly too. And I don't know what happened to my childhood. I know it sure seems like it took forever while you're in it, but you move right past it. Next thing you know, and I can't believe Atreyu's 2.5 years old now, and just to think of that, next thing you know, he's going to be going to school, and it's just crazy.
It is. And he's going to have his own things that he wants to pursue. And sometimes you may arrive at that point where you would like to discourage him, but that's the nature of the human experience, as we go against all the odds and do what we feel like we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is definitely an aspect of the evolution of consciousness. Consciousness, that's one word. And this whole realm of exploration. Like we think when our parents are saying no, you can't do something, we have a little more awareness of this knowledge that we can do anything. And so like, oh, I'll show you. I'll show you. And it's all kind of an extension of that. No, you can't have separation. It's impossible. Oh, I'll show you. I'll show you. And we keep, eventually we're going to just, yeah, yeah, you're right. We really can't. We really can't. And just come back and be like, okay, that was fun. Billions of years of wonderful, crazy ideas. And here we are back to where we started. And that's what's so beautiful. I mean, what a fail safe to, you can screw it all up all you want. And no matter what, you're coming home. So that's good.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is ultimately the outcome is assured. But a lot of times in that process of getting from point A to point B, we imagine to ourselves in the most dire of extremes, and that is somewhat diminishing, somewhat unnecessary, and often painful.
Yeah. When you cough on this Zoom thing, your mic goes down, and so you get real quiet, and so there's a glitch to that. But it's mostly because it was just so loud. It's okay though. I won't discourage your coughing. It's just that you got really quiet. I didn't hear everything you said, so.
Oh, well.
That's all.
Oh, I'm
it doesn't
sorry.
really matter.
I was just saying that our trabajo sometimes is an unfulfilled effort.
Trevejo, huh? I think I had one of those at the Mexican restaurant the other day. With some sour cream on top.
Yeah, that's no, that's probably a burrito. Our travails are trials and efforts. Yes.
The wording around here is trials and tribulations. That's the Mormon way of saying it.
Well, a lot of Christians, especially the non-Catholic Christians, are inclined to observe life from that vantage point, and tribulations definitely are incentive to drag your ass back to the doorway to heaven, instead of running around in the material world doing all these oddities that never really pay off.
So you believe in benefiting from trials and tribulations?
Well, I think the way of suffering, some have referred to it as very much a legitimate path, and it is real incentive to get real about what life is. I mean, I see a lot of people running around saying, oh, life is wonderful, and I'm in the happy dream, and am manifesting all of these wonderful things, but
just running in circles,
Yeah, and more importantly, they're not even recognizing that they don't have the target. They don't have that clear sense of where they need to be headed. It's nice to present a beautiful, happy, upbeat facade, but the truth is that disassembling your ego is not it's not a walk through any kind of a garden of earthly delights, as much as we might want it to be. It generally is, getting down in the mud puddle and sloshing around and getting yourself pretty damn messed up in the journey. But that's what it takes to arrive at a point where you can actually release the ego and strip it down, strip it bare to the bones.
That's true.
I tend to be very pragmatic in some ways, but the truth is, until you realize the depth of your own unhappiness, you're not really going to start to struggle to get to a higher plateau. And if you have this glossed over happy, happy, joy, joy life experience going on. That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Me
I don't
too.
think it's sustainable, or at least, from my observations, it really isn't. I think it's just,
Yeah.
it's just kind of floating with the the whim of the ego. So
Yeah. No, I definitely agree that as far as incentive, it's definitely an incentive to move, to move forward, to look for something more, and to not be stagnant in what we do. And even if we, find perfect have health, and we aren't suffering in that fashion, there's always something to suffer about. It's quite remarkable, that we always find something. Like, oh, now it's boredom, or depression, and or this or that, and we make it into suffering just so that we can be motivated, just so that we can have that incentive to move forward. But as far as even that evolution of consciousness idea I brought up, was that what we are as this exploration of consciousness entity, this function of the Son of God, is to explore all the possibilities of infinity, and and to come back and say, oh, this is the definition of God here, this is the definition of God here, and then to continue and expand upon that, and expand upon that as it gets bigger and greater, to eventually realize and recognize home, from the position in which it was completely separate to it's completely united. I love when I struggle on words. Oh, it's fun.
yes, well, it is what it is. I mean, there's so much in this world that we have created as a distraction to addressing the real core issue that we all need to be looking at. And I just noticed that Gary Renard has got a new book out that is course related, about lifetimes when Jesus and the Buddha knew each other. Jesus, of course, became the Christ, and Siddhartha became the Buddha.
Hmm.
And evidently they were hanging out in coffee shops and that sort of thing, discussing profound aspects of the existence of the human condition. And so Gary managed to tap into that, which is pretty cool. For some reason, I always saw it as a kind of a frog pattern of going from lily pad to lily pad. I always imagined that the soul that was Siddhartha became the Buddha, but he didn't actually get all of the content of his Buddhahood. So he came back as Jesus and completed the journey. And to me, that always made a lot more sense. But everybody's got their spin on things, and I'm sure that Gary's new book is going to be filled with all kinds of insightful offerings. That's the beauty of his work.
Yeah.
But
I've always enjoyed the idea that when Jesus went away, and even while he was younger, before his reign or whatever it was, his ministry, that he was actually went over and was Siddhartha, and all this stuff. So there's like all different stories, but when it comes to the alternate universes and within dimensions, all of them are possible, all of them are true. And as much as we use that wording, whatever's happening in your dream, man, if you want to make it official, then go ahead, write a book about it and tell everybody this is how it was, or anything. But it's as real as any other story, and they seem to contradict, but it's really just as much as there being different universes, quite literally. And that's to say different dreams. And it's entertaining, it's fun, and they all help. in any way you see fit. You know, you use it to find that direction. The guidance uses it as symbolism and bringing you to that awakening process and so on. So I'm excited to hear what it's about. That's great.
Yeah, his first book, The Disappearance in the Universe, I thought was, you know, a great book, and I definitely felt like it offered a lot of ideas that I myself benefited from. But it was interesting how it also created a rift in the community of A Course in Miracles people. And Gary got attacked on a lot of different levels for some of the things that he put into The Disappearance of the Universe, which is, you know, really counterproductive to the whole idea of pursuing the Course in Miracles. When you start criticizing others within the Course community and attacking others, then right at the very core of your attack is the reality that you're doing exactly what you're not supposed to be doing. It's the antithesis of pursuing A Course in Miracles. So when I see all these different people with all of their rants about this is the right way and that's the wrong way, I have to chuckle, because they're reading the pages, but they're not getting the words.
Yeah, definitely getting it practical, actually applying it, actually using it. It's tricky because that ego thing is around every single corner, regardless of what you're doing, what you're thinking. It's going to somehow try to manipulate the situation on this idea of separation, and especially when we've been trained so well throughout our lives to do so and to agree with that. Like most of the time, unless we're already trained a little bit through A Course in Miracles, we hear these thoughts and think they're perfectly natural, perfectly normal, to think of it as separation and to think of it as, you know, me against them and all these ideas. And, you know, it really takes some what would seem like discernment in that moment to recognize, you know, is that where, and is that the universe I choose? And I like describing it in that fashion, about universes, because it actually seems as if you're choosing between something that is actually there instead of making it up. A lot of people think it's hard to decide on a happy dream when it's not really there. And they're like looking at, well, this is all an illusion. What's this happy dream? I don't understand, and nor do I want to make up just another insanity, and as they would say, and they often do. But if you recognize it quite literally as an alternate universe that does exist already, then you just simply have to think in correspondence to that universe to be in it. And so really, then it's not something, as you know, it's a stepping stone as far as understanding that transition and becoming that alternate experience of yourself. And so when you get confronted with all these thoughts, you're literally choosing, you know, am I choosing the world in the universe of separation, or am I going to choose the universe of unity and togetherness and love? And the facade thing, as you brought up, you know, that's, you know, just rose colored glasses, as much as I love to wear those, it's not, you know, going to do it. You know, you can't have these attack thoughts and then try and be loving and expect something different, because it's coming straight from your thoughts. It's a manifestation straight from your thoughts, reflecting what you believe. So it's like you're now it's me against them, as I'm loving and they're hating, but really you're hating inside and you're angry inside, and then putting a facade of love and peace and happiness, and then you're against this ego that's all around you, but really it's still within you. You know, so you actually have to apply it to that essence of yourself within, really finding that true essence of love and true essence of peace, where you know, it's the main essence within you, and opposed to any thoughts that can offer. and you literally are transitioning into an alternate universe in which already exists. You know, that happy dream already exists over there, and you don't have to worry about creating it right or wrong, just simply thinking correspondence with it.
Yeah, and again, asking yourself periodically, is this getting me to where I want to be? You know, is this getting me back home?
Yeah.
Or am I stuck on this plateau of being blissed out? And what I really wanted to do is to get blissed into the kingdom of heaven. So it can be a quandary. There is no doubt about that.
There are many times, as far as through my journey, that I felt really inspired to be a specific way, and it was only really for healing. And but I was willing to do that, and I was willing to be seen wrong in the community. I was just fully taking that dedication to Holy Spirit and that guidance, and really hitting it with, as hard as I can, and just going all out. And so when I did, a lot of the times it just confronted different emotional things within me and different thought systems within me. And it was through that I was able to bring up different subjects, to be healed, to be forgiven, and in order to get a little farther. And so as far as, yeah, is this getting me a little farther? As long as I'm using it properly, it doesn't really matter what it is, because Holy Spirit can use any subject, any idea, any situation that you're going through. It's just, am I using it to achieve that goal of transcendence, or of relinquishing the ego or whatever? Then it doesn't really matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm forgiving it, and forgiving what I'm saying, forgiving what they're saying, and attempting to see, where there is no battleground, seeing where there is no opposition or right or wrong about anything. If I'm actually attempting to, and just like a holy relationship, if it's put in the goal of a holy relationship, then it's a holy relationship, even if it's yet to be achieved or not. That's besides the whole point. And we wouldn't have other bodies to have relationships with if we, could see that already. So.
Yeah, that is kind of funny how the whole relationship thing works, because it ultimately is ground zero.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
the whole theme of A Course in Miracles is getting us back to the point where we start off with an exclusive relationship and allow it to be transformed into a holy relationship, and then eventually come to the realization that it is the relationship of the entire sonship that we are trying to embrace and trying to enter into in a sacred way. So it can be very confusing for people, and this is an era where we have such instantaneous communication that it becomes challenging for all of us to be able to just reside in acceptance, to just be able to accept things for what they are.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, relationships are amazing. And my journey, even, I left my first wife, in all love and everything. I just knew I had to start traveling, and we did go through with a divorce and everything. And it was pretty intense, as far as what it was and they entered into, like, midway through the travels, I actually got married again, but it was all for this healing, and just to go through with it. And as much as I adored her and loved her, it was really just always for this healing, and she was being motivated and inspired to do it as much as I was, and to just completely putting that first. And it really is that, regardless of the face in front of me, that it remains to be. And this is what's so great about the dimensions and my understanding, in my experience, is that regardless of the face in front of me, I can see an alternate face. I can see a body, but then I could also enter into like the second or fifth dimension where I see this unity of souls and this joining of energy. But then I can also enter into the first dimension of recognizing that consciousness in which we are one, as well as entering into that first dimension where the zeroth dimension, that relationship quite literally with God, that it's still right now. And no matter what face it is, no matter what the third dimension shows me, fourth dimension contests to me, everything has that truth within it, has that same single relationship with God right there within it. And it just, as far as using the word mind blowing, as you transcend what you once thought was there and recognize that, the holy relationship is quite literally with the whole existence of all universes and all possible options of universes. It's quite literally, one with God, being one with God. And there's nothing else but that. When you get there, there is only that. It's pretty intense.
It
Beautiful.
is amazing and beautiful. And, when you start thinking of it in those terms, then you begin to question, why am I dragging my feet
Yeah.
on this journey? Why am I, so unwilling to give up this sense of an identity that I've created that so far has caused me nothing but grief?
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate foundation. That's the ultimate bottom line,
It's
is
true.
that we have to really look at our agendas very, very seriously,
Yeah.
and question ourselves daily about, why am I willing to indulge all of this suffering when it's such an easy thing to just let go?
It's true. Absolutely. Completely agree. As far as letting it go, that's amazing. Yeah. Just to train your mind to just let it go naturally, That's what's so great about the practice of meditation and forgiveness and things, is like, when you do find that truth, it's a natural condition, just like these things, as much as they might seem real, are now just brushing by, they're not sticking to you. I'm rubber, they're glue. and it's nice when you actually recognize that essence, and which brings that about, and that reality, as far as the relationship with God, and recognizing that we're the all-powerful creator of all existence, of all the universes and all ideas. And so as much as we want to say that the purpose of A Course in Miracles is to get out of the dream, it's really just to recognize this authority. And if we recognize this authority, we remember why we created the entirety of all of it, not just conceptually, but actually experience the recollection of creating universes upon universes, and literally the experience of our relationship with God. And so even as I talk about the dimensions, it's referring to 10 dimensions, and it's about the continuation of this dream into what we actually decided to do in the first place. And so there's actually additional dimensions to this third and fourth dimension, and not just fifth and sixth, going to seventh, eighth, ninth, and 10th, which is the very beginning anyway. As you get to the 10th, just using this idea of applying it and dividing it into these dimensions, it is the understanding of what is the beginning in that relationship with God, but it now knows everything, opposed to doesn't know anything. It's now the ending instead of the beginning. So I use different terms often to describe this, but that's essentially, it's the exact same teaching. But like, a lot of us have this awakening of going on with A Course in Miracles, and yet we look around and we're still here. And so there's actually this different purpose going on. There's a whole different purpose. This awakening and forgiving is very specific about recognizing that authority. And the only way to do so, like this idea of having private thoughts, for an example. The fifth dimension includes having all minds joined in knowing everybody's thoughts. Now, if you find out that your wife's thinking about stuff you don't like, and you get emotionally wrecked over it, and destroy her face and all this stuff, then you're obviously not ready to be in an experience of one mind, right? So you have to be in this place of complete forgiveness and acceptance in order to enter into this one mind experience that you're currently protecting yourself from. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think I said a
absolutely.
lot there, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you're I think especially you're relating it to a lot of imagery that your generation is very much invested in, which is the idea of all these different dimensions. And, you know, from my perspective, uh, that can get into a pretty weird area too, because in truth, you can't cap it off as 5 dimensions, 10 dimensions, 20 dimensions, because of our infinitude and because of the nature of our very true being, we created an infinite number
Yeah.
of dimensions. So you've got dimensions spreading out into eternity.
Well,
And when we're looking at it from a singular perspective, that's pretty overwhelming. It's like, holy shit.
yeah.
You know, I need to go to dimension 1,143, or should I stick around on this lower level of dimension 10,221? You know,
Yeah.
just and ultimately, eventually, we realize that all of that seems fractionated, that seems separated, that seems like it's little worlds unto themselves, are all part of one larger abstract reality that
Yeah.
was something that we imagined would have value for us if we were to pursue it, you know, and that was that idea of separation from God.
Yeah.
So it's
So,
funny to watch the way different age groups approach these things. And I don't know, maybe my age group is probably looking at me going, who the hell is that weirdo out there on the edge of the universe? Because again, I always tend to go to that abstract state of consciousness, because that really is the gateway to re-entering and reclaiming our role in the sonship.
yeah.
So
So it is definitely a misconception, misunderstanding of what a dimension is, to be misunderstood as alternate universes. And what you're referring to is alternate universes, as far as there is infinite number of it. You know, kind of think of it as a pyramid, that as we're in this eon of separation, that seems to only be a few options. But then as we're continuing through, there's going to be more options as far as different timelines of our personal experience and lifetimes, and recognizing that. And then even as we continue, it gets wider and wider, and into quite literally an infinite number of options and of all possibilities. So these alternate universes, as often referred to as dimensions, are usually involving like different creatures and, and weird things happening that people don't understand or associate with. But a dimension is very simply as a different perspective. And just like a two-dimensional thing is, you know, flat, and then having a third-dimensional perspective of having physical bodies. So it takes a little bit different understanding. That flat idea is actually the essence of the soul, in which we don't have the experience of sensations and feelings and not just emotions in the same way, but, you know, having the texture and taste and seeing with eyes, you know, even as it's referred to, that the soul only has one eye, and that, you know, then therefore doesn't have depth perception. So you kind of think of it in that fashion. But as far as also, you know, discussing it, I don't know who else talks about it. This is simply from my firsthand experience. So it's a little different, a little tricky, but it does get a little abstract. And especially when you recognize, as much as going into the nothingness, coming back into the nothingness, you know, having no self, going back to that zeroth dimension of yourself where there is nothing, there is not even a self, and then going, further in this fourth dimension is that essence of time and having an ego and all this stuff. So the barrier, which seems to be a prison, like we seem to be stuck in this, is this essence of time that divides us from the rest of it. And then continuing as we do achieve what A Course in Miracles has to offer us, now we're no longer stuck on the boundaries, specific timelines of specific what we are, but we do naturally, like this Devin is going to be living this life, but it's not concerned with making it holy, making it perfect or anything, because it sees alternate universes in which it is perfect. And it sees alternate universes where it's even more restricted and less perfect. And so it has this decision making that's going on as this Christ consciousness can choose between not just this Devin, but every single Devin and every single one feather and every single person possible in all existence. And literally, so it's unfathomable. It's remarkable and amazing. This infinite possibilities of all eternity is just really, if you try and comprehend it, your mind can't even reach the capacity beyond its blowing. So it's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's like looking up into the heavens at night and recognizing that there's an infinite number of stars populating the universe. And then there are an infinite number of universes populating eternity. So the little box we've built for ourselves of tangibility, my essence stops at my fingertips and my toe tips. That's such a ludicrous vision of our identity. And yet we are so trapped and enslaved to it, because in this realm, in this region of reality, we have put all of our effort and all of our expectation on that which is finite. So we can reach out and pick up that brewski and get that satiation of our need for having a cup of beer in the morning, if that's your path. And I do seem to have more than one person on my Facebook feed that approaches life from that aspect. That's always interesting. Get a good buzz on. If you get a good buzz on by noon, life is probably going to be much more agreeable. And,
happiness is easier that way.
Yeah, well, for some people it probably is. I drink gallons and gallons and gallons of decaffeinated coffee. So what does that tell you?
Well, what's the point if it's decaffeinated?
Well, that's what everybody says, but I think that the flavor of coffee, for my particular taste buds in this lifetime, is the supreme experience. It doesn't matter about the caffeine. I love the flavor. And
if you're in it for that, then do you use? Is it black or?
Sometimes with creamer, very rarely with anything sweet in it. I just like the tang of coffee. It has exactly the right components.
I definitely don't drink it for the flavor.
Really?
Well, it's the same, as much as I see it, is the flavor. I mean, what's the difference with flavor and an essence of having energy? It's just another sensation. Yeah, and we like to think of it as, I can struggle, or I can just enjoy how it's happening. And as far as, what is Devin happening? What is Devin doing? And it's not so much concern about I need a correct Devin, because there's an infinite number of Devins I can choose from. So I can have Devin that struggles, or I can have Devin that doesn't struggle with anything and is completely free. And so as much as, what universe am I seeing where Devin struggles? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I suppose so.
So it comes back to responsibility. I'm responsible for you know, what am I seeing other people as? So it gets
Hmm.
tricky.
Yeah, when you introduce people instead of coffee, then it does
Oh yeah.
become, uh, riddled with all sorts of possibilities that are going to tumble out of control. But for years, for probably up until I was in my late 50s, early 60s, I was drinking caffeinated coffee, 2 or 3 pots a day, but I never felt the buzz.
Uh,
So
Especially that much. I mean, yeah.
my metabolic rate has always been incredibly low.
Yeah,
So
permanent buzz. Perma buzz.
yeah, well, no, it just flattens anything that tries to give me a buzz.
Yeah.
It's I have been known to go for hours throughout the day with a pulse less than 50 beats per minute. And
Oh,
that,
you go on with a pulse?
well, it's kind of funny watching doctors and medical people when they first observe that, because they freak out. And it's like,
Like, whoa, 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 you're gonna die? You go
yeah,
it's pretty low, right? I mean,
that's
I'm a
pretty low.
medical doctor,
So, but on the upside, I never get angry.
so yeah, that's good. And you can keep loading on the salt if you wanted.
Oh, I definitely, I am a salt person.
That's good.
And of course, salt was traded at the same level as gold back 2,000 years, 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, I love salt. I'm a salt man.
Yeah, it's interesting because that old thing of, when you spill the salt, that's bad luck. Well, it's not that bad luck is coming; it's that you experience bad luck when you spill the salt, because the salt was worth the same as gold. So that's where that old myth came
Yeah,
about from.
interesting. And then they throw salt over their shoulder or something.
Yes. I think
Anyway,
I think that was a latter day cure that came along in the 17 and 1800s. But
someone's behind them catching it, of course. They're like, I got
yes,
it. Yeah, you gotta throw it over your shoulder. No, the whole thing. Anyway, I like the pain idea as far as tribulations. It does, in my experience, when you experience pain on a moderate level, it's almost worse than an extreme level, because you don't take that transcendence option, and you just kind of like stick with it. You're like, oh, this just keeps going and keeps going, pain, 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 and you're like just enduring it, instead of when it's extreme. Usually people kind of tap out and they're like, oh, I'm done. And even though that can be death, it is a possibility for people to recognize beyond their pain that they're having, even at a moderate level, that the only reality here is not, there is no, as far as pain, the sensation and the definition of the third and fourth dimensional reality. Yeah, it's pain, it's suffering, you want to avoid it. But the only reason it seems like pain is because in this dimensional reality, it involves opposition. But there is no opposite to love in alternate dimensional perspectives. So kind of a transition into that is a recognition that the pain you feel is as much of the same thing as the love you feel. And once you start having this willingness to see that your pain, just like anything else, is love as well, then you can start experiencing that transcendence, starting to experience that uh, release of that definition psychologically. And then actually the sensation goes along with it of reflecting an alternate reality, quite literally, where it is the love of God.
yeah, that really is the final step in understanding, is to realize that the love you take and the love you make, as the Beatles said, is all the God, the love of God, and our carnal love is shrouded it's shrouds around what true love is. But if we allow the Holy Spirit to lead us through the experiences, then ultimately we will, in fact, arrive at true love.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate these times with you, and I'm gonna miss the day when they come to their end. So just know that you'll always be in a part of my mind.
Well, and that's vice versa, absolutely. I think anytime that we that we are joined in trying to share our understanding of the truth, that the Christ becomes present in that situation. You know, Jesus tells
Yeah.
us, when two or more are gathered in my name, I am there also. And I think that really is true. I've seen that so much in all these different discussions with you and Barrett, Stephen, and everybody else that comes along. And I got to admit, it's a selfish act. I love doing these videos, and I think it's great that people join us and that we share them all around in different places on the internet. But ultimately, the bottom line is, I know that I need them. I know that I need these dialogues. I know that I need you in my life, because that's the avenue that we take. Is we don't leave this world alone. We leave it together.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I noticed that a little while ago, did you start a new video series? It looked like astrology conversations or something.
No, I haven't. The only new thing is humanity healing. I do a weekly, on Wednesday evening, I do a weekly discussion, an introduction to A Course in Miracles. It's a half-hour program. And I've been getting insane responses. This last one, I'm up to about 7,800 views on this last one.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So
pretty good. That's on Facebook, right? I remember when you started that, but I totally forgot about it since.
yeah, it's through Humanity Healing on Facebook, and now I've been archiving them. So they're also on my YouTube channel.
Oh, you
So
gotta send out a link for participation. I really I wanna check it out and see what it's like on Wednesdays, but I tend to forget about the world on Wednesdays, so I'm interested. And
yeah,
like
I'll definitely give you a heads up. And I usually post it on my timeline about a half hour before I go live. So Wednesday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, 7 Mountain, and 6 Pacific on Humanity Healing. You can catch that video.
okay.
And it's been a really good journey for me, because once again, when you start teaching, your growth factor, your learning factor really explodes. You know, in order to learn, you have to teach.
Yeah.
You really can't cap it all. You can't just sit in the corner with the book and have the expectation of really learning the course. But
Yeah.
when you start teaching the course teaches you. It starts to come through you in a way that you're listening to yourself and going, damn, I didn't know that I knew that. But you know, that's the beauty of the way this whole process works, is that in order to learn, you definitely have to teach.
Yeah, that's why I definitely recommend for people out there looking for a place to just freely teach in their own fashion, in their own words and everything. Besides like YouTube and Facebook, but we have ACIM Gather over here where people can talk to Lynn and Dove and find out a good hour that's available for them, and to be able to just speak with people that are here and get a little input and all this stuff. It's a great place to do that, and it's pretty casual, so it doesn't have to be too serious, and as long as you have a microphone, you're good to go. and it's exciting.
Well, and I think just having that overview that Dave gives us here, Doug, because I see him as being somebody who has profound understanding of the course, and whenever he shares things with you, it's going to be something that accelerates your journey. And best of all, he is very accessible. He is not somebody that you have to kind of worship from afar. He is a person who loves to communicate, and that is a key element also in becoming a part of the Course in Miracles community. Is it really is about communication and forgiveness and acceptance.
Yeah. So it's exciting what we develop this world to be, as day in, day out, we like to, and it's pretty remarkable what we can do. Just the fact that you and I have never met in person, as as far as in person goes, and yet we have abilities to communicate, to find out about each other, and then just to start a program like this. And it's pretty amazing just to think of how it's representing the mind coming together, and it's almost unstoppable. Like these ideas of putting a limit on the internet and all this. It's fascinating how that's just a representation of a thought in the mind, and we can freely just get out of that as we just recognize, there's no separate beings out here. It's just simply a representation of your mind, of my mind, continuously, and aspects of my mind. That's all we are, just representing different aspects continuously. So
Absolutely. Sounds like one of the little guys is starting to mobilize around you there in the background.
yeah, I think Mom just woke up, and so he's running around all excited that Mama's up. And so yeah, we got weird hours around here. We go to bed pretty late.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. I'm up and down all night long. I don't really have a sleep cycle, but
Yeah, you sleep on a roller coaster.
no, actually, I sleep in my chair.
Okay. Well, it sounds like fun. If you could sleep on a roller coaster, you could sleep anywhere, I guess.
That probably is true. The family was down in Disney World for the last 2 weeks, and so
Oh.
my oldest grandson got married. They had the royal treatment. They had an official Disney wedding.
They had a wedding at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a small world after all, isn't it?
Yeah, and they rode they rode up to the chapel in the carriage from Cinderella, and then they took the carriage over to the banquet hall where they had the reception.
Like in the castle? Come on, tell me it's in the castle.
No, it's actually peripherals, because at midnight, the whole thing is structured so that you get the best view in Disney World of the fireworks, and you get to see the fireworks going off over that amazing castle. So.
Nice. I've only been there once, so I don't know the whole plan of it, but that's awesome. Well, thank you again for this time, and I appreciate it and look forward to it now bi-monthly, right? Next 2 weeks from now.
Well, unless you want to do it, weekly, it's up to you and your schedule. So whatever you want to do.
No, well, I thought it was you that wanted to do. Okay,
no, I was just saying if that's a better rhythm for you, but whatever you want to do. So
it's okay. We'll figure it out then. We'll talk about it. I'm fine with once a week. I also enjoyed that I had some time to work on some other stuff too, but we'll figure it out. It's all good.
Sounds great. Well, we'll be back at some point in the future.
Right.
As vague as that may seem, that is very ACIM.
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 They build fences, right? Okay.
That's true. Well, have a great weekend and stay warm.
Yeah. Bye bye.